I recently started jogging. I usually head up my street and veer off into Garden of the Gods. Sometimes I just decide to run through the neighborhood. My lungs hurt, my knees ache, but as long as I put one foot in front of the other, I always make it home. Do you know what never bothers me while I'm running? The thought that 3 men are gonna come up beside me in their truck and kill me because I'm in the wrong area. Like 3 white men did to Ahmaud Arbery, a 25-year-old black man who was jogging through a residential area in southern Georgia. I'm Jeremy Roberts, and I think it's time that we have a discussion about white privilege. Merriam-Webster defines white privilege as a set of social and economic advantages that white people have by virtue of their race in a culture characterized by racial inequality. If you're willing to accept the facts about white privilege, you'll see it on display everywhere you look: our pay, our education system, even the policing. The problem is, not enough white people are willing to accept that white privilege is a real problem. From the conversations that I've had, there seems to be 3 main reasons. Well, wrong way. 1, if white privilege were real, then I wouldn't have to work as hard as I did to get where I am. Don't talk to me about white privilege. I came from nothing too. Or, don't call me racist. Look, accepting that white privilege is a real thing does not make anybody racist. But not accepting that it's a real thing will continue to keep every minority race, ethnic group, or anybody that claims any sexuality other than heterosexual under our oppression. To try to help those of you that are struggling with the thought of what white privilege really is, I want to give you a few examples. In a 2018 study on diversity in children's books, it found that 5% of the characters in the books were Latinx, 10% African American, while 50% were white. The worst part, 27% were animals or other, more than African American and Latinx combined. When your children get into school, they'll begin to learn about our presidents, Washington, Jefferson, Madison, and how they shaped our country. But you won't learn about the slaves that they owned. And you won't learn about the disgusting and vile things that white slave owners did to their slaves. Because as long as white politicians are in charge of this country, factual black history will never be allowed in our textbooks. White privilege is a problem. I know that we all have problems. We have problems with our health, our relationships, our school, and our work. But there are some problems that a white man like myself will never understand. I will never drive by a police officer and worry about being pulled over because of the color of my skin. But a 2020 study about policing across the nation not only showed that black drivers are pulled over at a higher rate than white drivers during daylight, it shows that whenever the sun goes down and that the police officer can't tell the color of skin, that black drivers and white drivers are pulled over more equally. It also showed that black drivers are searched twice as much as a white driver, even though illegal contraband is found in a white man's vehicle more often than the black drivers. According to EPI.org, which is a nonprofit, nonpartisan group that does economic research, when I graduate and I start my new career, I'm gonna make about 24.4% more than a black man or Hispanic man starting in that same career. If you're a minority, that should piss you off. As a white man, I feel guilt. Not the guilt of starting this, but the guilt of not doing enough to fix it. So how do we stop white privilege and equal out the playing field? My honest first thought kept me from doing anything for 2 years, because it was, what can one white man do to stop the systemic virus that's become white privilege? First, I had to get past the mindset of just one and realize that I can do anything 1,000 people can do. It just takes me a little longer. And once we get past that thought, then we can start helping. We can do that by donating, volunteering. Here in Colorado Springs, we can donate to 9 to 5 Colorado, whose goal is to help women achieve economic justice. ACLU Colorado, whose purpose is to defend and preserve individual rights and liberties guaranteed to all people in this country and by the Constitution and laws of the United States. Or the Boys and Girls Club of Pikes Peak region. Become a positive mentor, help a kid. Also, you get out and you vote. You vote out the politicians that refuse to accept factual Black history, and you vote in the politicians who will publicly call for racial and gender equality. Then you figure out your voice. You speak up when somebody uses slurs or language that you know is wrong. You speak up when somebody uses racial stereotypes, whether it's your family, your friend, or whoever. Or you may end up like me and decide that you can no longer hide in the background while these social injustices continue and act like everything is okay. Because of the papers that I've been able to write while I was here at Pikes Peak State College, I've read enough stories about social injustice that I can no longer turn a blind eye to the unjust treatment of minorities. Instead, these stories sparked something so deep within me that I took this public speaking class to figure out how to say these things publicly. And I hope that I have more opportunities to say this, because this is a discussion that needs to be had more often. And until then, we should all continue to stand up against the social injustice until everyone who wants to go on a run can do so without fear for being killed because they are the wrong color.